Hi guys, and welcome to our next set of tournaments here from HADO Arena Coventry. This tournament is from the Sunday of August Bank Holiday weekend, and it's a new format, which is why there's a little graphic up here for you to have a look at, so I can quickly talk you through it. And this format is called Race to Zero. If you already know what Race to Zero is, you've seen this before, obviously feel free to skip ahead to the match footage. I will not be offended. Well, I will a bit, but we'll let you off. So, for those who don't know what this is, very quickly and briefly. When you play HADO, rather than your physical size and strength being determinant factors in how you play, you have game stats, just like a video game. So, therefore, it's what gives it this fantastic level playing field with no age or gender categories, because everything to do with size and strength is controlled by game stats. Now, you start off with your 4 stats, and they control how fast the shot travels, how big the shot you're firing is, how often you can fire, so your charge rate, and how many defensive shields you can raise. And you get 1 point in everything for free, so I mean you can do everything at a very basic level, and then you have 6 bonus points that you add in, and those control basically then how you perform within the match. They control make you whether you're going to like what's called the assassin sort of style, where you've got fast, large shots, where you're going towards technician, which is very focused around charge rate to get down shields and give you control of the gameplay area, or if you're going down the defender route, which is heavy on the shields for protecting and looking after your team. And the various different tactics and mixes that go around those. So what happens in Race to Zero is that every time your team wins a game over the course of the tournament, you are blocked from spending one of those 6 stat points. So the aim is the ultimate win of it is to be able to get to 0 points being allowed to spend. In other words, you've won 6 games, so you're not allowed to spend any of your points. So you're playing on a stat set of 1, 1, 1, 1, and still win a game. So that's the ultimate. Otherwise, obviously, it's the team that gets closest to that goal over the course of the tournament. Now, today we've got 5 teams taking part in a round robin setup, and they're all going to play each other twice. So they'll play 2 games rather than we quite often do a best of 3. This time it's just straight 2 games. So there is opportunity to tie a result, but really this is all about how quickly can you try and lose those stat points. Now, what this does is it means that if you've got a mix of more and less experienced teams, obviously in the early rounds, those less experienced teams are likely to lose the games, in which case they maintain their stat points. They're staying with high stat abilities, whereas the less experienced teams are going to lose the stat points, maintain the stat points. The more experienced teams are going to win those games most probably, at which point they're going to lose those stat points. So over the course of the tournament, you effectively almost get a natural balancing being caused. So as you get towards the end of the tournament, when you do have more experienced and less experienced teams meeting up with each other, it's a much more level playing field because obviously the more experienced teams have lost the stat points, and it's equalised out the games. So it should lead to some competitive games where you wouldn't necessarily see them, and a really great playthrough on how it works. Right, let's get into our first game then. So starting off here, we have on the left-hand side, we have Titans in red, who train with us in our Sunday morning clubs. And on the right-hand side there, I think there's various names there. They are a compilation team of Bonnie, Josh, and Josh, who've playing together for the first time today. As a entry into this Open Cup. So it's 1 point already there on the board for blue team. Moving in, Reds really need to get some focus fire, get rid of those shields. Their coach will be shouting at them from the sidelines for this one. They've been looking at this quite a lot in training recently. We need to get that focus fire in, get rid of those shields nice and early on if they can. To open up the other team. There's a lot of shield work coming in from the blue team here, giving Reds a lot of problem punching through them. Reds dropping a few shields of their own, but they're only on single shield points, whereas Blues have gone to 5 shields across the board, every player. So a huge amount of defensive capacity on the blue team there. And they're using that to their advantage, allowing them to just stand still and snipe. And they're focusing across 1 red player at a time there. You can see they're quite clearly there targeting the red player on the front line. And that is a 4-0 win for blue team in game 1. All points there being scored by blue 6 up on the far side. 4 and 5 just really laying down the shields, allowing blue 6 to land those KOs. But if you're watching across the game, they're very clearly locking 1 player out at the time. Now this means obviously that our blue team, Bonnie, Josh, and Josh, are now down a stat point. So they're going to move. We're going to move into game 2. But that in turn is going to knock this down. So another sort of like quick look through this game again for how it played through. And obviously we can see here that we've got this real heavy shield wall tactic coming from the blue team. It's not something you normally see, but as they are pickup teams the first time playing together, I can understand why they're a bit hesitant, why I didn't really know, haven't really got a feel for each other as teammates. For some of them, they've only met each other for the first time today. It's the joy of open tournaments. Obviously our sort of sanctioned tournaments where you've got the competitive teams you'd regularly train together. And although we have got some of them playing today, you've also got pickup teams. So it's a great way for first-time teams, for people who are just getting into the sport to come and get involved, and for teams who've got limited match experience to really start sort of getting their feet, getting a feel for how things work and getting comfortable in the competitive environment before they start looking at entering any of the main sort of regional or national competitions. Now, so you can see that heavy shield tactic there from the blue team, just locking reds out. And I know red team have been training quite regularly on their in their club sessions on shield takedowns, but that's clearly something that they need to focus more on here. To get rid of that, because if they could have focused those shields down, really blues didn't have anything else, and getting rid of those shields would have got them through that match quite happily. But blues now down a stat point, so it's going to be obviously 6 stat points for red team, 5 stat points now for blue team. So that's a 10% loss in abilities. We'll see what that does. Obviously, if they feel that there's likely to be those shields again from blues, reds may well up their charge rates even further to allow them to punch through. But no guarantee they're going to go the same way. So dropping us into this second game, and blues have gone for 2 shielders this time, and 1 for firepower. So let's see what effect that 10% drop in stats and abilities has for our blue team here. So shields going up again, nice and early. No points on the board yet. Because reds now with the first point on the board, already obviously surpassing what they did during their first game. And although obviously you can't hear it on this recording, the red team have got a strong support group here in the arena, and this is already starting to get quite loud as we reach the halfway mark. So reds still with a single point lead here. Blue shielding is still holding out. They've still got a fair few shields to drop up and into place, but they're quite poorly placed there. They're a long way back. They were much further forward in game 1, allowing them to a lot more capacity to move around the space. Red's still holding on that single point lead. Blues yet to land a point, slowly chipping down those red life markers, and reds with a second point on the board. Blues really need to pull something out of the bag here. 10 seconds remaining, 2-point clear lead for red team. No points landed yet for blues at all. So they've been clipping away and chipping away at those life markers, just not managed to get that final hit. And that's the first point in for blues in the dying seconds of the game. So that is a 2-1 victory to our Titans, and some very happy fans and very happy players there. So one of the greatest bits about this balancing, you saw there that for that entire match to flip, just a 10% shift in abilities, a one single stat point dropped, and that whole game just flipped straight round. Showed you basically that the teams were in reality a lot closer than the first game made it look. It's just that little tweak and shift in ability was really all that it took for this to jump across. Again, we saw lots of. Again, we see there that they've picked up speed and things like that. They've got an assassin player on the blue team for this half, which is kind of what you'd expect. They've got their shielding in, but the shielding is now really far back. I think it was Bonnie was putting most of the shields up towards the centre, and that was drawing Josh and Josh forward with their shields as well. So better position there on that second one there from Josh, as opposed to one from Josh, because clearly that makes it easy for us as a commentator. How dare people have the same names? But yeah, really nice play, good early point on the board there from the Titans on the red side. Blues just really unable to get back into this. They've gone for small shots across the board. Um, yeah, and they're only able really to chip away. Now, scale 1 shots, which is what Blues are running on here, are only capable of taking out a single target point at a time. And obviously, each player there's got 4 target points within their overall target marker. Once you get to scale 2 and above, if you hit the center of it, you can actually do basically 1-shot takedowns, and you just can't do that. You can't get that happening with the scale 1. So they're having to chip away marker by marker by marker, which makes the job so much harder. I mean, it's a spot on that run up to the center there, moving to the center there from Josh to take out the life marker there on the red player. But very well deserved victory there for red team. So that's now both teams moving further on into the competition now, both down 1 stat point. So they're both going to be down. So they're both leveled. It's going to be interesting to see how things now go as we move on to the other teams. So moving in next, we've got 2 long-term training partner and rival teams. We've got the Fighting Mongooses and Universe A. We do have our sort of longest standing teams. Let's see how they go. So, bit of shields both sides, plenty of firepower. Nice aggressive frontline play there from the Mongooses on red team. Universe A shifting up with a nice forward shield position there on the Blues. Shield rapidly taken down from by the Mongooses. Nice movement, good dominating position though from Universe A. 4 points to 1 in this as we're coming up with the first 30 seconds played. Mongoose is starting to clip back. Single point lead now, and they've pulled it back square again as we come up on the halfway mark. Shields in the centre there, forcing both teams to really work around the edges to get around that solid blocker. Mongoose is now starting to accelerate ahead. The early lead of Universe A's is completely evaporated. 30 seconds remaining, 4 point lead now for Mongooses. Universe A starting a little bit of a fight back, but they're going to really have to step the game up here if they want to close that gap. Mongoose is now starting to extend their lead as we're moving into the last 15 seconds. For that early 4 to nothing lead that Universe A had, this has been a phenomenal fight back there going on from Fighting Mongooses. It's a very definitive win there, 14 points to 8 in game 1. Red one there, really sort of dominating in terms of the hits landed. Featuring Reds 1 and 2, featuring very highly there on the MVP board as well. Blue player 6, fantastic accuracy, but obviously just need to get more shots out. So 50% accuracy is great, but when you only fire 24 bullets, it's not enough, especially on charge rate 3. Just need to get a lot more shots out there from the blue side. So let's have a proper talk through on this one then. As I said, these are 2 sister teams of regularly playing and training with each other, know each other's moves and tactics very well. I mean, it's good, nice forward shield positioning. It's good aggressive play on the centre line as well. So both teams very confident in their gameplay. Nice positioning on the shields there. Both sort of giving issues to the other team in terms of inhibiting crossfires, but also protecting their own teammates in the process. And that 4 to nothing lead that Universe A on blue had at the start, which was looking really strong, and Mongooses on red just not phased by it at all, immediately fighting back there, and just this constant barrage into Universe A, and just points constantly ticking up on the board there for Fighting Mongooses. It's real good aggressive play there from down on the centre line. Constantly keeping Universe A under pressure, and his 2 teammates there just causing issues with the shield positioning, blocking the other team out, and forcing them to keep moving all the way through. Really nice play. Okay, so now that one ends, let's have a look. Game 2. So Mongooses on red are down a point. We saw in the last game how that one drop in stat point reversed everything. Let's see whether in this matchup if we're going to get the same effect. So last game we saw a nice early lead from Universe A, then evaporated rapidly. We can see this point still 0-0 at this point. So Universe A not performing as well this time round, even though they've got a 1 stat point advantage now. Mongooses with the early point with points on the board now of 2-0 as we come up on the halfway mark. Universe A really need to get points on the board, and there we go, first points on there. So it's a much close game actually at this stage, even though it's a lower scoring one for Universe A. So 2 points to 1, 2 points all. So yeah, by this point, obviously, last game, Mongoose is already accelerating significantly into the lead, and they're running on about a 4 or 5 point lead here. So Universe A holding them very, very nicely now. 20 seconds remaining, it's 4 points apiece. So much more spread out on the scoring there for Universe A, but a much tighter match already in what we're seeing. So 10 seconds remaining now, 5 points apiece. Again, just that one stat point shift completely changing the entire dynamic of this match. Two very good KOs there from Reds 1 and 2, just in the last couple of seconds of the game, taking this game for Mongooses, but demonstrably hugely closer match than game 1, just after that single stat point change. So that is now Universe A maintaining all 6 of their stat points, and Fighting Mongoose is now down 2. So they're only allowed to spend 4 stat points on their abilities for the rest of this tournament. Okay, so what have we got here? Obviously, very different dynamic to this second game. That shift in that drop in the stat points already having a very clear impact in what's going on. Obviously, we saw some early points going on the board in game 1 for Universe A, which we don't see here, but we see a much steadier, much more balanced match. Obviously, Fighting Mongoose has really managed to power through during the into the second half or second 2/3 of the last game. And they're struggling to get points on the board. Universe A, nice shielded position at the front line there, helping them gain that first point in this. And these scorelines now really close. You said in game 1 by this point, the Fighting Mongooses on red were already accelerating ahead. They had a good sort of like 4 or 5 point lead at this stage. Universe A now absolutely holding them. So this one stat point shift, that 10% change on one team, and all of a sudden we've got ourselves a really close game. So it just shows actually that the score lines don't necessarily really show you just how close some of these teams are in ability. If that one little tweak is enough to pretty much flip the whole thing. So, really nice scores there right at the end by Fighting Mongooses, but that could very easily have gone either way. That was a really good close game. And that is now Fighting Mongooses playing for the rest of this tournament, or until they win another game, at least on 4 stat points, and Universe A maintaining on 6 stat points. So, as there's only one team, because we have 5 teams competing today, one team left to play, and they're up in the next match. And they're not against Universe A. It means whoever Universe A meets next is most likely to be down stat points. They're going to go into those games with advantage with their full abilities in place, whereas Mongooses, to being down 4 stat points, are going to be quite the opposite. Here we go. So, match 3. Here we have Wolfpack on red and Titans on blue. Both regularly trained teams with our club groups here at HADO Arena Coventry. Early points on the board there for Wolfpack, really pushing ahead. Wolfpack are by far and away the more experienced of these two teams. Wolfpack have competed in multiple national tournaments and performed really well against very seasoned and experienced teams. In terms of, I suppose if you're looking at experience and skill within the sport, Wolfpack definitely going into this with an edge. But there's 4 points on the board there for Titans, which is not bad at all against a team that's as mobile and as hard to hit as Wolfpack can be. Wolfpack really extending that lead now, though. So everything's got to be viewed through the lens of experience. But Wolfpack doing a phenomenal job here, really pushing Titans back, controlling this gameplay. 10 seconds remaining, and it's a dominating lead at this stage from Wolfpack. I think it's the biggest, by far and away, the biggest score difference we've seen so far in this tournament. 23 points to 7, 16 of those points coming from Red 1. So Red 1 clearly being a player that the other team need to be watching out for. Let's see if you can 75% accuracy. That's that's a lot. Okay, let's have a look at that in a little bit more detail then. So as you said, there is, although these are both obviously teams of junior players, the team in Red Wolfpack are very experienced. They've competed in multiple national tournaments, both at the Arena and at the NEC as well. So they're a very experienced team. The two lead players there have been in the sport for a number of years now. Done a lot of training, a lot of experience. Titans on Blue are regularly training. They're part of our club system here at Arena Coventry, and they're starting to improve quite dramatically. But there's where the Titans' experience is measured in a few months. Wolfpack is measured in years. As you can see, that's reflected in what we're seeing in the scoreline here. So it'd be easy for Titans to kind of get depressed over that scoreline, but fundamentally they've actually scored a fair number of points there against a significantly more experienced team, which is good. Okay, so let's roll this through to game 2. So we've seen previously that 10% shift for losing stat points. Obviously now Wolfpack are down a stat point, has been enough to really dramatically alter the second game. Shouldn't be forgotten, of course, obviously in that game 1 that Titans were down a stat point. So Wolfpack were not only had more experience, they were also had a bonus stat point over Titans. So this time they're both on 5 stat points. So let's see whether that sort of leveling the playing field in terms of stat abilities helps to pull this match a little closer. So good aggressive play coming from Wolfpack on Reds again. Titans fighting back well though. I mean, this is again looking like a controlling game for Wolfpack. As you said, as they are the more experienced team. The fact they went into game 1 with a stat point bonus and are now playing on a level playing field, it's not a surprise that Titans are struggling in this particular match. It's not a great match for them to come into effectively add a disadvantage. More points on the board though for Titans this time, and fewer points on the board for Wolfpack. So that stat point shift is showing. Reduction points scored, as said, from Wolfpack, and an increase in points scored there from Titans immediately after we have had that point shift on the abilities. So again, easy on look at that and lose team and get a little bit downhearted, but when you actually look at the shift there, that was really good. So we've got that shift up in ability happening very quickly there. Let's have a look at that in a little bit more depth then. So as you said, obviously game 1, it was a big, really dominating run from Wolfpack because they were, as I said, not only the more experienced team, they were also running 6 stat points to Titans 5. So it was kind of expected that was going to be a strong win there from Wolfpack. Here, game 2 though, both teams are on 5 stat points. Although Wolfpack start moving away quite early there on the points, there is this fight back coming through from Titans, which is really nice to see. They're not, they're absolutely not going down without a fight here. And although Wolfpack are constantly, attacking those points up, Titans are not, they're not backing out. They're clearly not getting disheartened with it. And the number of points scored by Wolfpack in game 2 is, clearly lower than game 1. The points scored by Titans in game 2 is higher than game 1. So although it's not caused this real close tightening that we saw previously, but the reason we saw that in the previous matches was because the more experienced team dropped a stat point, and the less experienced team had the stat point advantage. Whereas in this one, game one, it was actually the other way around because the Titans already having played, so actually the less experienced team went into the game with a stat point disadvantage, which allowed a really big win from the more experienced team, and then that win's been reduced quite significantly in game two, where the teams are now on equal. If Wolfpack were down a point again, we most probably see what we've seen previously. This game really starting to level up and become a lot closer. And here we go into our next match. Red side, we have Universe A, who at this point are still on 6 stat points against the combined team of Bonnie, Josh, and Josh, who are currently running on 5 stat points. Nice spins on the front line there from Tim, but not really helping. Blues moving ahead on points wise, with a single point lead here with 20 seconds played. Universe A and Reds there pulling it back now to take it into a single point lead. So the two you expect Universe A to most probably have the edge in terms of experience and gameplay skills, but not necessarily by much. Even though it is a pickup team on the other side, majority of them are still skilled and experienced players. But Blue are down a stat point, unlike Red team. So here we got a nice lead starting to open for the Reds. 4-point lead, 5-point lead now with 20 seconds left to play. Blues really need to push this up. Blues saw in the early games really favoured heavy shield tactics. They've gone for a firepower build this time around, which has not played in their favour at all here. 7-point lead coming to the last 5 seconds now for Universe A. Universe A now taking it 12 points to 4 in the first game. Players 2 and 3 there racket the points nicely for Universe A throughout that sequence. So as you said, big shift there in the play format from the blue team, Bonnie, Josh, and Josh sort of collaboration group. Not sure why they moved away from shields completely, but they've gone straight to pure firepower build there, and it's definitely not done them any favours. They were said down a stat point though, in comparison to Universe A's Universe A there on the red side, and I think that mix of stat point drop, changing tactics, and that overall that they are, as a group of players, they're less experienced than Universe A, and it's their first competition playing together. So the odds were stacked quite heavily in Universe A's favour for this particular one. Not taking anything away from what they in the win though. This now means therefore that Universe A are down their first stat point as well. So we're going into game 2, both teams on 5 stat points. So again, we expect to see a bit of a shift in this, probably a much closer game. Probably still likely to be a Universe A win, but let's see how it goes. So moving through now into our second game. So equal number of stat points this time. Good shield position there from Blues, and they've now reverted to that shield tactic that worked so well for them in their earlier games. USA Reds also favouring shields. Blue shields being allowed to stay up way too long. Reds have certainly got the firepower to between them there to get rid of that shield, and they're just letting it stand, and it's really hampering their gameplay at this point. In terms of moving around the court, clearly not the hampering their gameplay in terms of points scored. 7 points to 1 there in favour of Universe A. So they're scoring well despite allowing those shields to stay up for much longer than you'd normally want them to be. Late points going on the board there from blue team, but I think that might be too little too late at this stage. 15 seconds remaining. Well, they're starting to close that gap quite happily. In fact, 2 points difference now going to the final few seconds of the game. technically possible, but I think this is going to go to Universe A. So nice play there from Universe A. Again, players 2 and 3 racking up the team points as they've gone into the game. So let's have a look at that a little bit more detail as it plays through now. So said, get that first game. The blue team had moved away from the shield tactics we've seen them using up till now. Game 2 they reverted back into their shield. So the shield positioning is actually pretty good. They're up for a long time, but they're not really benefiting from those shields. They're not moving in such a way as those shields are causing trouble. In fact, the shields there is quite off center, and they're basically heavily to the right hand side of the pitch, as you're looking at it from the red team's perspective, and the blue team's all moved to the left hand side of the pitch. So the shield's not actually inhibiting any shots on them at all. So not great positioning there. And now again, shield's gone to the left hand side of the pitch, and the team's moved to the right. And it's like they're moving away from the shields. The angles aren't on them great, allowing Universe A to pop shots around them, behind them. So it's good the shields going up, but they're just not actually being used to generate any sort of protection or blocking action or anything else for the blue team. That's why the Reds there are able to just constantly just pick away at them and pull those points up. This is a really nice fight back though in the last like 15 seconds. You see those points really starting to clip up. Therefore, blue team, they're only 2 points behind. Technically, it was possible there to pull that square. There was most certainly enough. There was the time to do it. There were the points available on the other side, so that could have flipped. But that now turns to 2 wins for Universe A. So Universe A came into this match sequence with 6 stat points. They leave it with 4 stat points after chalking up 2 wins there. So be interesting to see where they go from here. Yeah. Okay, so nice gameplay there. We're now, I believe we've got our 2 leading teams about to face off against each other. So this is, here we go. So Fighting Mongooses on red versus Wolfpack on blue. Both teams on 4 stat points. So nice even starting point on this. Teams have faced off against each other multiple times before. Mongooses generally have the edge against Wolfpack. They are a more experienced team with more both training and match experience under the belt than Wolfpack. Although Wolfpack have been doing put a lot of work in to close that gap. Let's see how it pans out today with these reduced stat points. So early lead there from Universe A, using those shield positions well. Wolfpack taking far too long to get that shielding down. Much better focused fire there on that shield. Good takedown that time. They've got Universe A gone with 2 shielders though. So Wolfpack really need to focus to get rid of those shields quickly, and they're just not taking them down fast enough. Universe A, Fight Mongooses is holding on to a nice solid 3-point lead there. 20 seconds remaining. Wolfpack doing what they can to close that gap, but those shields, just too many of them. They're staying up too long, and they're locking out that whole centre area, giving Fighting Mongooses a massive amount of protection and cover. But good fight back there throughout there by Wolfpack, 9 points to 6. So that's a good scoreline. There's nothing wrong with that. And so both teams were on both teams there entering it on 4 stat points. So this is now obviously Fighting Mongooses after this game are now down to 3 stat points. So it's going to be 3 stat points versus 4 for game 2. So it was interesting how that goes. So obviously that game 1 was pretty close. Biggest issue there with these shields racking up. A 5 shielder and a 4 shielder for Fighting Mongooses, and Wolfpack just not focusing into those shields fast enough. I mean, they're popping shots around them nicely. They're causing some chaos, but that big solid shield blocking in the centre, just there time after time. And Wolfpack taking way too long to get those shields down, which is unfortunate. But unfortunately, that's what's left of me. You can see it. So they're dodging around, shifting to try to avoid the shield rather than getting rid of the shields themselves, and it's leaving them as open targets for Fighting Mongooses to land hits on. and reducing the number of shots that they're putting in. There's quite a lot of shots going wide as well there that you can see where they're firing, but it's not giving them the angles around the shields properly. Okay, let's move into game 2. So, Fighting Mongoose is 3 stat points, Wolfpack on 4. Is that shift going to be enough? Nice firepower both ways. Mongooses have not gone for the shielding tactics this time either. So we're going to look at a straight shootout both sides. Clip aways happening from both teams there. Mongoose with the first point on the board, second point on the board now. Mongoose the third point on the board. Wolfpack really need to get a score in now. So Wolfpack on the board. 3 points behind at this stage, coming up on the halfway mark. 4 points behind now. Need to get some focus in there. They're getting taken apart. I think they're getting too focused on individual players, not really looking for where there's the weaknesses, where there's the easier marks to try and rack some points up from. But closing back up to 2 point difference now. Good solid, good counter shield there on that right hand edge, but he's got very static behind it now. Needs to put himself out of that position, and nice fight back coming through. So Wolfpack now pulling themselves into the lead by a single point as past 10 seconds remaining. Can they hold out 7 points apiece? 8-7 to Wolfpack now. 3 seconds remaining, and Wolfpack take game 2. So that is both teams down to 3 stat points. So 3 stat points apiece. Nicely played. So again, we're seeing this instant shift, just a single stat point can make between teams, and that's really good to see. It's one of those ones that again, it's this nice bit about the sport, the fact we've got this digital element to it, and we can play with and tweak these things in a way that you just can't do in a classic sport at all. And just a single stat point shift here or there, and you've suddenly got incredibly close competitive games where you wouldn't necessarily have had them before. Great play here from Wolfpack. They're on the back foot, 30 seconds in, they're 3 points down, and then the fight back starts, and they just don't give up. They hold the nerve throughout. They keep pushing, keep driving on it, and it's really nice to see. They're down there like 6 points to 1. With only 30 seconds left on the clock. For a lot of teams, that'd be a point where you may even consider just giving up. You're so far back, and Wolfpack proving why you can't do that in HADO. The game can move, shift, and flip so rapidly. Pulling back now to 15 seconds, they pulled it back to 5.6, then 6-6, then 7, then taking into the lead there with 10 seconds left on the clock, and this real sort of like breakneck finish on it all. Shifting up, Mongoose scoring again, then Wolfpack immediately again, and then just those last couple of seconds just need to stay alive and deny that final point to take into a draw scenario. 8 points to 7, really good win there for Wolfpack. So both teams still neck and neck then. Both teams down to 3 stat points at the time. So Wolfpack and Fighting Mongooses currently are leaders on the race to 0. So we're getting prepped up for our next matchup now. So it's Fighting Mongooses remaining on court with their 3 stat points, and they are facing off against Titans, who are currently on 5 stat points. So this is probably the biggest experience gap between teams. So let's see how this plays through, how it goes, and where this gets us to. Is the 2 stat point difference enough to counteract the experience and training difference between these two groups? First points on the board there for Mongooses. Nice consistent fire coming out of Titans. They could do with possibly focusing it onto an individual target a little more. Dodging and evasion is really good there from Mongooses, just constantly shifting their targets out the way of that incoming fire from Titans. That's first point on the board from Titans there. Took them a while there to really focus down on that front corner, but they got him in the end. 5 point lead here now at the halfway mark for Fighting Mongooses. Titans really got the work pulled out for them. Obviously, as Wolfpack proved in their previous game, and you can fight back from some pretty far down point score positions. But Titans really need to get their head in the games here and focus in. Just not quite enough movement, and definitely not enough variation in that movement around the pitch, making it a little bit too predictable for for Mongoose. As said, Mongoose has got quite a lot of extra match experience over Titans here. So able to have a much better idea of predicting and second guessing where their opponent's going to go, and better in keeping their own movement patterns varied. So that's a 13 points to 3 there. So these two teams are the biggest. We've got the biggest split in experience between them, though. So not a surprising outcome there. That's a win for the Fighting Mongooses. Even with the two stat point variation on it. Overtime is one of those things we'll figure out about how big a stat point needs to be, really, based on experience level, for us to get these matches. But said these two are at the opposing ends of the spectrum in terms of game experience. Here. But even said that, obviously Titans are getting points on the board for such a young team. They are doing well here. They should be very proud of how they've played through in this tournament so far. They've had some cracking games. So this means that, though, for our next game, though, because again this is a Fighting Mongooses win, Mongooses are now down to 2 stat points. Titans have maintained 5. So for this step for their game 2, that's going to be 2 stat points to Mongooses and 5 for Titans. So is that enough? We'll find out. Well, that's enough to bring this sort of like whole game field back round. So here we go. So really, really low now on stat points, very low charge rate, slow shots, small shots from Mongooses. Titans still with a good range of options on their side. I've got to admit, given how low the stat points are for the other team, and you've got the points to spend, I'd have been tempted from Titans' perspective to have a shielder, because you've got the points to afford to have a shielder, and it's going to soak up so much firepower from the other team while they're on a low charge rate. But first point on the board there for Mongooses. Titans nicely on the board much earlier this time than in game 1, which is good to see, and a much lower overall score line at this stage as well. So coming up on the halfway mark now, just 2-point difference between the two teams. 3 points difference now. Can Titans close this up? Mongooses trying to use shielding, but obviously their shields are all rank 1s at this stage. They've only got 1 use. They're only a couple of shots. Titans holding really nicely here. 20 seconds to play, only 2 points in it. Much closer game, 3 points in it now. Back to 2 points. Can Titans close this any further now? 10 seconds. Mongooses are really, really struggling here on these reduced builds. Single point in it now. 2 points in it again. 3 seconds. Back to a single point. Oh, that was close. So the answer is therefore, the difference between these these two teams looks like it's 3 stat points. 3 stat points, and you're getting really close down to the wire games. Nice gameplay, really good holding the line there from Titans. Play through it again, but really, really nice in the way that's functioning there. There's no sort of step back or give up from Titans, which is great to see from this young team. Certainly, the experience and ability difference between these two teams is the biggest split within this tournament. And to see Titans hanging on this well, staying in there, really focusing on their tactics. I think had they gone for Shielder, they might have taken this game, because I think one Shielder with some nice centrally placed shields would have been enough to completely lock Mongooses out on this one. Mongooses, of course, now have it, though, because they won this game, are now down to 1 stat point. So they've got, I believe, 1 match left to play, and they're going into it with a single stat point at this stage. So, that's going to be intriguing for how they go, and whether they're able to get themselves down to that 0 point, or even achieve that ultimate goal of getting to 0 and still winning a game. So that's what we're looking for an ultimate win here. But amazing play there from Titans. Really well held on, and maintaining their focus in that game without getting disheartened as it shifted through. Okay, so getting ready to move into our next match now. Here we go. So this is Universe A on red versus Titans on blue. So again, Titans with a distinct stat point advantage here. I believe, yes, it's well, that big. Sorry, it's for Universe A currently on 4 stat points, Titans on 5. So 1 stat point advantage to Titans. Hopefully they're still quite buoyed up from that last game. So 4 points to 1 currently for Universe A. Again, Universe A, very experienced, very capable team. Significantly more match experience than Titans. So even with a single stat point variation, the odds very much in Universe A's favour here. I'm not sure how many tournaments it's going to be. Well, we can still say that because I think Titans are going to start closing the ability gap very rapidly on these on some of these more experienced teams, purely because their training regime is so significantly more regular than their opponents, and that skill gap is going to close quite quickly. So 20 seconds remaining, big clear lead point here by Universe A. Said there is only 1 stat point difference at this stage though, so although Universe A are down a stat point, as we saw against Mongooses, who are equivalent to experienced teams to Universe A, we need a 3 stat point gap between, for Titans to be really fighting up and close them. But obviously that's a Universe A win, so Universe A down a stat point, so we've now got that to a 2 stat point gap between the teams for the second game. So it'd be interesting to see if that is it, if that's enough, or whether they need the full 3 stat points that it took with Mongooses to level it out. So let's have a little bit more talk through more detail about this playthrough here. So again, high charge rates, firepower generally being focused on there from Titans on blue, and a general firepower build again from USA. Nobody's really going down the shield routes this time. I mean, as we go further and further into these games, and the more experienced teams' stats are dropping, there's definitely a strong argument for the less experienced teams who've got the higher stat points, therefore the points to use, to have a shielder. Because it's going to soak up so much firepower from the other teams, and they haven't got the points to generate the charge rates and stuff that use from their shots. So it would cause good use of shields at this stage would have caused absolute chaos. And I think that's just part of what we mentioned about the experience factor between the teams here. That Titans are still very young as a team, performing really well for the amount of training experience they've got, but a lot of tactics like that aren't yet in their repertoire, but I don't think it'll be very long before they are standard ideas there for them. So strong lead there for Universe A, when there was only a single point stat difference between them. Be interesting to see how the second game plays through now that there is 2 stat points difference between them after that win for Universe A has cost them 1 of their stat points. So here we go. Move ourselves into game 2 of this sequence. Team's just getting prepped and ready. Slightly early there, and here we go into game. Yep, so 3 stat points to 5. See whether this is enough to help Titans close this gap and pull it in. Good evasion movement there from Universe A. You don't necessarily have to do huge amounts of movement to shift your target out of the way. It's just basically how you're moving around the space, and that shift on there as it comes through. So first points on the board there from Universe A. Titans needing to score still as we move through 30 to 50 second marks. That's 30 seconds played. Universe A chucking up quite significantly here. Really focused firepower from them. Tracking in onto Titans there. First points on the board for Titans. Nicely done. 3 points on there, closing that to a 2-point lead. So it's already a much closer game than game 1. Just that single stat point shift, and the competitive nature of the whole thing has jumped up significantly, and it's become a much tighter game. 20 seconds remaining. 3 points in it now, 2 points in it now. Titans really fighting back well here, going down to the wire. Nicely starting to drop some focused fire in towards the members of Universe A who are low on life markers. got to close that down to a single point. University pulled it back, single point again, 3 seconds. This is going right down to the wire. Really, really good play there from Titans. Absolutely brilliant. Again, they're scoring some fantastic match results here against really much more experienced teams. And yes, obviously it's the variation in stat points that's helping that happen. But you've still got to land the points. You've still got to achieve in order for that to happen. Okay, so let's see if we can break this one down a bit more. So, you said now 2-point stat difference between the teams. So only 3 stats points available to the University players, but 5 available to the Titans players. First points going on the board. University racking up those early points. Given how the first game went, again, very easy to almost like sit back, feel like you're going to lose, but we're not seeing that attitude at all from Titans, which is fantastic from this young team. And that should, if anything, that should be the key thing to take away from this, is that because they didn't give up, because they kept fighting, that's why they were able to pull this game back. So 40 past the halfway mark, they've pulled this back 5-3. Now, because the other team are your points, there's always 3 points available. So if you're within 3 points of the other team, you can flip the whole game in an instant, because every one of them is vulnerable. Just maintain that 3-point gap there. Again, you would say just edging ahead. Titans coming back in, and then again, and coming in. 2-point difference here coming in. It's now 10 seconds remaining. It's tight, it's the wire, but everything's still single point now. University fighting back desperately there. 5 seconds remaining. Another point in for Titans. That was so close. That could so easily have gone into overtime. But the key thing there was Titans really staying in, not getting disheartened, not getting pushed back by that early lead that University managed to rack up during the first sort of 40 seconds or so of the game, and just staying in there, and then that beautiful fight back, that's racking up the points in there. And again, just seeing that that single point shift on the stats during this race to 0 has been all it's taken for these two teams to go from significant disparity in terms of experience and skill to being able to play each other on what's a very competitive level playing field there. So both teams really getting something from that experience. So moving into our next match, here we have University staying on court on the red, facing off against Wolfpack on the blue. So obviously both teams here down significant stat points. I believe got there 3 and 2. So actually at the moment Wolfpack are at a single stat point advantage. So it's 3 stat points to Wolfpack against 2 for University. So let's see what Wolfpack are able to do here. First points on the board for Wolfpack there. These two teams have met each other in tournament multiple times. Most recently, Wolfpack have managed to get the edge over University. So, if anything, you'd say if they were going to this even the money, you'd be probably putting the odds in favour of Wolfpack in the standard matchup, and Wolfpack here with a stat point advantage as well. So University really up against it here. It's going to be a very tough game.